Hello, my name is Shaunese, Executive Director of the Lake County Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for joining us for COVID-19 Conversations from the Frontline. With many of us making the transition and working from office to home office, we wanted to take this time to present this program on managing the stress of working from home. Today we have with us Jill Novacek, who's Program Director at Community Youth Network in Grays Lake, who's going to give us some really great tips on how to continue to manage the stress that you just may have while working at home. Hello, Jill. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me today.
Yes. So with such a large number of people working from home, what would you recommend for those that have the added task of making this work?
Well, I think we all need to keep in mind that this is not a regular work from home schedule. This is really about trying to manage new family schedules. So unless you live alone, we have to figure out how we're getting schoolwork done, how maybe another partner in the house is getting work done, and just renegotiating schedules all over the place.
Okay. So what would you recommend as a great regimen for making this work?
I would say start with the difficult stuff in the morning. Typically that's when everyone has some kind of a task to do, and to try and focus in on your detail-oriented tasks first thing in the morning.
Okay, and as the morning transitions into afternoon, and then the kids start to get restless and you're still trying to get work done, at that point, still, how do you stay focused?
Yeah, so the beauty of it is we are in control of our physiology. I know sometimes it doesn't feel like that, but really when we control our breath and when we slow that down, we slow down our heart rate, which also helps to lower our energy level. So we really need to be mindful of what kind of energy will serve the task that I need. So if I'm going to spend my afternoon doing an online training with people, I'm going to need a higher energy level versus if I'm going to need to do a focused task and a lower energy level to really slow my heartbeat and my breath down, and to figure out how I can keep others busy in my house so I can get my work done.
Oh yes, that's very important. So at this point, most workers have, none of us really have any idea as to when we're really going back to work. So while we're working from home and just doing the day-to-day, it becomes monotonous. How do we break that? What can we do differently to say, okay, I need more energy here?
Yeah, so we really need to focus on building a calendar, really, because if we're going to be living day to day without a calendar, it's going to feel monotonous, and it needs to feel like a distinct day. And so to look at what are the tasks that you want to accomplish. And so even if these are things that you've been doing for eons, just know it's going to take all new adaptations, and to be patient with yourself and to give yourself extra time to be able to learn some new adaptations.
Right, and like I said, it gets monotonous, so it takes a while. So should we be at that point? I mean, we don't even know if this is midpoint, quite honestly. But it just tells everyone, we don't know, so start to incorporate something new into the schedule. So now, as we know, so when you talk about, let's talk about some of the health techniques, or be health conscious relative to what we're doing. So even at the office, we know that they say the 20-20-20 rule. What are some other things that people can really begin to do to kind of help with the day?
Yeah, we need to be able to build some exercise into our day. I think we are spending more and more of our work time in front of a computer, because even when we're communicating with our clients and each other, we're spending more and more time on platforms like Zoom in order to get business done. And so look at some small ways that you can look at doing a stretching routine, some yoga. YouTube has some good exercise videos. Even Amazon Prime has some full exercise videos that I've never seen before. And if you're a family with small children, there is Cosmic Kids yoga. And so it's a yoga routine for the whole family, and there's storytelling, which really engages the young kids and keeps them from climbing on you when you're trying to do exercise.
Right. Yeah, I've had some calls, and I'm like, I understand. We're working from home. The TV's on in the background. We're working from home. Okay, so for some workers, of course, working from home, they might not feel as motivated. There's that lull in time, or you finish the work and you say, okay, I've done enough. It's not quite 8 hours, but I've done something. What are some other things they could do when they want to kind of break away from that regular work schedule that might be really good for them?
Yeah, so really think about some of the tasks that take you the longest to do and figure out some new life hacks. There are some things that I think we've already learned because in the moment we need to get something done. And so we are actively searching for new ways to do things, and to do things more efficiently. But also start to think about the different projects that you work on, the different parts of your position, and try and really look at your professional organizations and what kind of recommendations they have for some new techniques or some new things that you could do, and look at building some efficiencies in that maybe you hadn't thought about before.
That's true. That is definitely true. So we know that on the other hand, some workers, there's that 8-hour day, but there's some workers who just do 10, just do 11, just because they work that hard, and they become overwhelmed. What would you recommend to kind of, I guess, not necessarily keep them focused, but what's the best way to balance, not overworking? Because you're not watching the clock. It's not like, oh, 5 o'clock, I have to go home and make dinner. I have to go pick up the kids. It's, how do you balance that when you're just kind of sitting at home working all the time?
And this is where you really do need to have that schedule and that structure, because we all need wellness. And so the first thing I would say is to limit the media coverage. It can be real easy to be doing some work and listening to the radio or checking in on the statistics and looking at what the news of the day is, but really limit that, because beyond some of the basic statistics that you get from the Illinois Department of Public Health, there's not much more that we need to know right now. And so to really focus on the wellness, and knowing that when we start to feel overwhelmed or threatened by the information that we have, and I say threatened because our hindbrain is focused on keeping us safe. And so it is fight, flight, or freeze. And when we start to get to that place of fight, flight, and freeze, we're no longer able to use the frontal lobe of our brain, which controls all of that higher level thought. So really just to put a beginning and ending of your day, and to have that balance, because we all need physical and emotional wellness now.
That is so true. That is so true. And I like the idea of the exercise, because if you're going to sit down, you find a place in your house, you sit down, you start working, and then unless you're going for, if you don't stop for lunch. Now I would recommend, like if you're there with your spouse and you all can both take turns stopping for lunch to make lunch. That's another thing. You have to work the kids' schedule into your schedule. So if they need to eat, you have to make lunch. Maybe you can take that fun walk to the mailbox and get the mail, something like that.
Absolutely.
So after, let's step back into the house. So once again, so there's families where, both spouses are working from home. You have the kids working from home. You have college kids working from home, and you have all this going on because you no longer have to, drive to drop the kids off at school. You have to get yourself up, get dressed, drop the kids off at school. Kids forgot their lunch. You have to run back home, get the lunch, and drop the lunch back at school. Stop, get your coffee, stop, get your latte. All those things that you were normally doing in the morning, you're not doing those anymore. They're just kind of cut out. So once again, there's the whole thing. How do you still feel motivated to sit there all day at home and work when that whole part of the day is cut out and you're probably still sitting there in your pajamas anyway?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. I mean, one is, again, to have that schedule and that structure, but also within our workday, what structure do we want to create? So looking at a list of activities that we need to get done, and to really focus on, in those moments of chaos in your household where there is high energy and a lot of noise, are there tasks that don't demand a lot of thought and don't demand a lot of problem solving and higher levels of thinking, that are more menial but meaningful for our work that we can get done during those times?
So it's all about getting in that right mindset. So even if you're not there, what do you do to get there? Or just, I'm sure there's half the day you say, okay, maybe I'll get up and get dressed, but are you really going to get up and get dressed for work, or just another pair of comfortable?
I'm glad, because you know what, when you sit in your pajamas all day, the reality is we need to dress for success. So even if I know that I'm not going anywhere, I still dress every day. Like at a moment's notice, I'd have to run out of the house to see a client face to face, because it gets me in the right mindset.
That is true. And so when you get to Friday, do you still feel like, oh, it's Friday?
I do.
It's Friday. You still feel like there's a Friday, so I don't have to, but I'm at work. Yeah, so I mean, even the mind is still set on certain things, so you kind of get stuck at that point. But yeah, that is important, just to kind of continue to figure out, how do we get comfortable and still make this happen and still be productive Still,
Right.
but when you think about it too, a lot of times, even though you're still productive home, there's still the communication. So you're still calling your work colleagues, you're
Mhm.
still emailing your work colleagues, and of course, you know, many times they're having Zoom meetings. So, you know, and I would probably bet you know, there's probably going to be something relative to Zoom fatigue. And I was talking to a friend last week, and I said, I bet probably in the next 6 months to a year, the medical industry is going to have come up with something related to health and wellness about working from home. You know, the fatigue
Yeah.
from working from home, and how do we get out of that when it's time to go back to the office? Maybe that'll be a slow return, but you know, Zoom meetings, you know,
Yeah, so
relative.
Zoom fatigue is a real thing, and there's actually stuff coming out already on it, because there is so much more that we have to attend to when we're in a Zoom meeting versus being in an in-person meeting, and all kinds of new adaptations that we're still learning because this is not typically how we interact. And so our brain is so focused on all of these details, that we really are tired after having so many Zoom meetings.
Right, and it's the same. It's just a different way. You're still seeing the same colleagues, but it's
Mhm.
you're right. It's that level of fatigue. But you know, once we get over this, we'll move back into the office and things should be fine. But that is something for people to think about. It's important to still keep up the level of communication, however you do it. And of course, this is the best way. Now we know everyone is not necessarily using Zoom. They're using some other type of communication software, but it's still important to find ways to communicate. So Jill, once again, I want to thank you very much for joining us for our program today. If there are any final thoughts that you'd like to share, I also know too that April is a very important month for Community Youth Network, so love for you to share any other comments with our audience that's joining us today.
Yeah, so April is Child Abuse Awareness Month. And this is really a time to be aware that child abuse and neglect goes on in our community. CYN has been around since 1978, working for family wellness. And so really trying to reach out to families in need to address those needs. We provide telehealth services currently. And so if there are behavioral or emotional issues going on in households, families can reach out to us, or even maybe some of your families are struggling given the current circumstances, and you can get in touch with us for some telehealth services. We can be reached at 847-548-6000. Extension 013 is our intake line. Online, you can also find us at cyngrayslake.org. And so this could be an opportunity for wellness for you and your family, or if you're looking for a tax deduction, a good way to support other families in family wellness.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you again, Jill Novacek, for joining us from Community Youth Network, and thank you for sharing your contact information. For everyone, all of this information will also be listed again at the end of this program if you'd like to contact them. But on behalf of the Lake County Chamber of Commerce, Jill, once again, I want to thank you. I'd like to thank you all as well for joining us for this program. Stay tuned for upcoming programs later this week. So thank you again, Jill, for joining us, and you have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.